December 17th, 2011. Pyongyang, North Korea. State television announced that Kim Jong-il, supreme leader of North Korea, had died of a heart attack 2 days earlier while travelling on his private train. The broadcast showed footage of North Koreans weeping hysterically in the streets. Thousands collapsed in grief. Soldiers sobbed openly. The entire nation appeared to be in collective mourning for their dear leader. But outside North Korea, the world asked a different question. What happens now? Kim Jong-il had ruled North Korea for 17 years with absolute power. He had built nuclear weapons. He had starved his people while living in luxury. He had created the most isolated, repressive state on earth. And now his 27-year-old son, Kim Jong-un, was taking control. A man so young and inexperienced that even North Korea experts knew almost nothing about him. A third son who had been studying in Switzerland just years earlier. An untested leader inheriting a nuclear arsenal and a starving nation. The world watched nervously. Would the regime collapse? Would there be a power struggle? Would the nuclear weapons fall into uncertain hands? Instead, something remarkable happened. The youngest son took power smoothly. The military fell in line. The party apparatus remained loyal. The dynasty continued. Today, over a decade later, Kim Jong-un rules North Korea with the same absolute authority his father and grandfather wielded before him. 3 generations, 75 years of unbroken rule, the longest lasting communist dynasty in history, a family that has turned an entire nation into their personal kingdom, complete with nuclear weapons. This is the story of the Kim dynasty, from guerrilla fighter to god king, from revolutionary leader to hereditary monarch, from poverty and war to nuclear weapons and international isolation. This is Nuclear Bloodline, inside North Korea's Kim dynasty. To understand the Kim dynasty, you must first understand how it began. Kim Il-sung was born Kim Song-ju on April 15, 1912, in a village near Pyongyang, in what was then Japanese-occupied Korea. Korea had been annexed by Japan in 1910. For the next 35 years, Koreans lived under brutal Japanese colonial rule. The Japanese tried to erase Korean culture, forced Koreans to take Japanese names, and exploited Korean labor and resources. Many Koreans resisted. Some formed guerrilla groups in the mountains and forests of northern Korea and Manchuria, fighting Japanese forces through raids and ambushes. Kim Il-sung joined one of these guerrilla groups in his late teens. He adopted the nom de guerre Kim Il-sung, meaning become the son, to hide his identity from Japanese authorities. For several years in the 1930s, Kim fought as a guerrilla commander in Manchuria. He led raids against Japanese outposts. He became known for his ruthlessness and tactical skill. But by 1940, Japanese forces had crushed most Korean guerrilla activity. Kim fled to the Soviet Union, where he joined the Soviet Army and spent the rest of World War II in training camps. He was just one of many Korean exiles. Nothing suggested he would become anything special. Then everything changed in August 1945. On August 6th and 9th, 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan surrendered days later, ending World War II. Korea was finally free after 35 years of Japanese occupation, but freedom immediately became complicated. Soviet forces occupied the northern part of Korea. American forces occupied the south. The division was supposed to be temporary, just an administrative convenience until a unified Korean government could be established. It became permanent. The Soviets needed a leader for their occupation zone. They needed a Korean communist who could govern North Korea as a Soviet satellite. They chose Kim Il-sung. Why Kim? Several reasons. He had fought the Japanese as a guerrilla, giving him revolutionary credentials. He had spent years in the Soviet Union, making him trusted by Moscow. He was young, charismatic, and politically flexible. In September 1945, Kim Il-sung returned to Korea for the first time in years. He was just 33 years old and virtually unknown to most Koreans. But the Soviets backed him with their military and political power. They eliminated his rivals. They built him up through propaganda. They made him the face of North Korean communism. Within months, Kim Il-sung went from obscure guerrilla fighter to the most powerful man in North Korea. From 1945 to 1950, Kim Il-sung consolidated power in North Korea. He purged rivals. He arrested and executed landowners, business owners, and anyone suspected of opposing communism. He collectivized agriculture. He nationalized industries. He also built a cult of personality. North Korean media portrayed Kim as the greatest guerrilla fighter in Korean history, a hero who had almost single-handedly liberated Korea from Japan. This was exaggeration at best, outright fabrication at worst. But in the absence of independent media or free speech, the propaganda became reality for North Koreans. By 1950, Kim Il-sung ruled North Korea as a dictator. He controlled the military, the party, the government. He answered to Moscow but had significant autonomy within North Korea. Meanwhile, South Korea had established a separate government under Syngman Rhee, backed by the United States. Korea was divided. Two governments claimed legitimacy over the entire peninsula. Both sides wanted reunification, but on their own terms. Tension built along the 38th parallel, the line dividing north and south. Skirmishes erupted. Both sides prepared for war. In June 1950, Kim Il-sung made his move. On June 25, 1950, North Korean North forces invaded South Korea. They crossed the 38th parallel with Soviet tanks and artillery. They overwhelmed South Korean defenses. Within days, they captured Seoul, the South Korean capital. Kim Il-sung believed the invasion would succeed quickly. He expected South Korea to collapse and the United States not to intervene. He was wrong on both counts. The United Nations, led by the United States, sent forces to defend South Korea. American troops landed at Incheon and pushed North Korean forces back. By October, UN forces had captured Pyongyang and were approaching the Chinese border. Kim's invasion had failed spectacularly. North Korea was on the verge of complete defeat. Then China intervened. In November 1950, hundreds of thousands of Chinese troops crossed into North Korea. They pushed UN forces back south. For 3 more years, the war ground on. The front line stabilized roughly along the original border. Millions died, soldiers and civilians from both Koreas, China, and the UN coalition. Finally, in July 1953, an armistice was signed. The fighting stopped. The border was re-established along the 38th parallel. But no peace treaty was ever signed. Technically, North and South Korea remain at war today, just with a 70-year ceasefire. Kim Il-sung had failed to unify Korea by force, but he had survived, barely, and he blamed everyone except himself for the failure. After the Korean War, Kim Il-sung faced a devastated country. North Korea's cities were destroyed. American bombing had leveled Pyongyang. Industrial facilities were ruins. Hundreds of thousands of North Koreans had died. But Kim used the devastation to consolidate power further. He purged rivals, blaming them for wartime failures. He eliminated anyone with independent power bases, Soviet-aligned communists, Chinese-aligned communists, domestic rivals. By the late 1950s, Kim Il-sung had eliminated all opposition. He was the undisputed leader of North Korea, answerable to no one. He also began developing his own ideology. Chushe, usually translated as self-reliance. Chushe claimed that North Korea should be independent of both the Soviet Union and China. It should develop its own path to socialism without foreign interference. In reality, Chushe was a justification for Kim's personal dictatorship. It allowed him to reject Soviet or Chinese criticism while maintaining his absolute power. Kim also intensified the personality cult. He was no longer just a leader. He was the great leader, the father of the nation, the son of the Korean people. Schools taught children to worship Kim. His portraits hung in every home, office, and public building. His birthday became the most important holiday. Stories of his supposed heroism, mostly fabricated, were taught as history. By the 1960s, Kim Il-sung had transformed North Korea into a totalitarian state with himself as an absolute monarch in all but name. And he began planning to make his dictatorship hereditary. Kim Il-sung's first wife, Kim Jong-suk, had died in 1949. She had borne him 3 children, including Kim Jong-il, born in 1941 or 1942. Kim Jong-il grew up in absolute privilege. While ordinary North Koreans suffered poverty and deprivation, Kim Jong-il lived in luxury. He attended the best schools, he had private tutors, he watched Western films, thousands of them imported illegally. He developed a taste for cognac, lobster, and other luxuries. By the 1970s, Kim Il-sung was grooming Kim Jong-il as his successor. This was unprecedented in communist states. Communist dictatorships were supposed to be based on ideology and party leadership, not family dynasties. But Kim Il-sung didn't care about communist principles. He cared about maintaining his family's power. Kim Jong-il was given positions in the party and government. He was put in charge of propaganda and culture. He produced films and operas glorifying his father. In 1980, Kim Jong-il's succession was made official at a party congress. He was designated as Kim Il-sung's heir. The communist state had become a monarchy. The workers' paradise had become a kingdom, and no one in North Korea could openly object. Kim Jong-il's rise to power was accompanied by increasing brutality in North Korea. The regime created a caste system, the Songbun, that classified every citizen based on their family's loyalty to the regime. People from families that supported the Kim regime were given better jobs, food rations, and housing. People from families suspected of disloyalty were sent to remote areas or imprisoned. The regime established a vast network of prison camps, gulags, where political prisoners and their entire families were sent. These camps were hellish. Prisoners worked as slaves in mines and factories. They were tortured. They starved. Guards executed them for minor infractions. Defectors who have escaped these camps describe conditions as bad as Nazi concentration camps. Starvation, torture, medical experimentation, and execution were routine. The regime also enforced absolute information control. Foreign media was banned. Radios were fixed to receive only government stations. Travel was restricted. Contact with foreigners was impossible for ordinary citizens. North Korea became the most closed society on earth, a prison state where 20 million people lived under total surveillance and control. And Kim Jong-il, living in luxury and watching Hollywood films, was being groomed to inherit this nightmare. Kim Il-sung died on July 8, 1994 at age 82. His death came as North Korea faced catastrophic famine, economic mismanagement, and the collapse of the Soviet Union, North Korea's primary benefactor, had devastated the economy. Food production collapsed, distribution systems failed. Hundreds of thousands, possibly millions, of North Koreans starved to death over the next few years. The famine was so severe that people ate tree bark and grass. There were reports of cannibalism. Bodies lay in the streets. The regime called it the Arduous March and blamed international sanctions and natural disasters, anything except its own policies. Kim Jong-il inherited power during this catastrophe. He was 52 years old and had spent decades preparing for this moment. The international community hoped Kim Jong-il might reform. He was younger, more exposed to the outside world through films and travel. Maybe he would open North Korea. Instead, Kim Jong-il doubled down on his father's policies. The personality cult intensified. The prison camps expanded. Information control tightened. And Kim Jong-il added a new element to the family dynasty: nuclear weapons. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Kim Jong-il accelerated North Korea's nuclear weapons program. His father had started the program decades earlier, but Kim Jong-il made it a priority, diverting resources from feeding his people to building bombs. In 2006, North Korea conducted its first nuclear test, a partial success that demonstrated they had the basic technology. The international community imposed sanctions. The United Nations condemned the test. But Kim Jong-il didn't care. He understood something crucial. Nuclear weapons made North Korea untouchable. No country would invade a nuclear-armed state. The dynasty's survival was secured. Kim Jong-il continued testing. Each test improved North Korea's nuclear capabilities. By the late 2000s, North Korea had a small nuclear arsenal. Kim also developed ballistic missiles capable of reaching South Korea and Japan. He tested them repeatedly, terrifying regional neighbours and the international community. The nuclear program came at enormous cost. Resources that could have fed the population went to weapons development, but for Kim Jong-il, the weapons were worth it. They guaranteed the regime's survival. They gave North Korea leverage in negotiations. They made the Kim dynasty immune to foreign regime change. Kim Jong-il had turned North Korea into a nuclear-armed crime family masquerading as a state. Kim Jong-il's personal life was as strange as his governance. He loved films, especially Hollywood movies. His collection included thousands of films, many obtained through illegal channels. He supposedly wrote a book on film theory. He kidnapped a South Korean director and actress in the 1970s, forcing them to make propaganda films before they eventually escaped. He had multiple wives and mistresses, most kept secret from the North Korean public. He had at least 3 sons and several daughters. He lived in multiple palaces while his people starved. He imported luxury goods, cognac, lobster, sushi from Japan, while ordinary North Koreans yet ate grass. He travelled on an armoured train. He was afraid of flying, equipped with every luxury. The train had rooms for entertainment, dining, and conferences. He was paranoid about assassination. He employed body doubles. He varied his schedule unpredictably. He trusted almost no one outside his immediate family. He was also reportedly concerned about his appearance. He wore platform shoes to appear taller. He had a distinctive bouffant hairstyle that became his trademark. To the outside world, Kim Jong-il was both ridiculous and terrifying. A dictator who watched Hollywood movies while millions starved, who built nuclear weapons while his country crumbled, but he maintained absolute power until his death in 2011. Kim Jong-il had 3 known sons by 2 women. His eldest son, Kim Jong-nam, fell out of favour in 2001 when he was caught trying to enter Japan on a fake passport to visit Tokyo Disneyland. This embarrassed Kim Jong-il and suggested Jong-nam wasn't serious enough to lead. Jong-nam was effectively exiled, living in Macau and travelling around Asia. His second son, Kim Jong-chul, was reportedly considered too feminine and weak by his father. North Korean defectors claim Kim Jong-il said Jong-chul was like a little girl and unsuitable to lead. The third son, Kim Jong-un, became the chosen heir. Born in 1983 or 1984, records are unclear, Kim Jong-un was sent to school in Switzerland under an assumed name as a teenager. He attended school like an ordinary student, playing basketball, studying, and going relatively unnoticed. His classmates didn't know he was the son of North Korea's dictator. In the mid-2000s, Kim Jong-un was recalled to North Korea. His father was preparing him for succession. Like his father before him, Kim Jong-un was given positions in the military and party. He was mentored by his father and uncle. He was being groomed to continue the dynasty. When Kim Jong-il died in December 2011, Kim Jong-un was just 27 or 28 years old. The world wondered if someone so young and inexperienced could maintain control of North Korea. Could the military accept leadership from someone so young? Would the party elite challenge him? The answer was swift and brutal. Kim Jong-un took power and immediately demonstrated he would be as ruthless as his grandfather and father. His uncle Jang Song-thaek, who had been a powerful figure in the regime and helped with Jong-un's transition to power, was arrested in 2013. He was accused of treason, corruption, and various other crimes. He was tried publicly, declared guilty, and executed. Reports suggested he was killed by anti-aircraft guns in front of other officials, a brutal public execution meant to terrorize anyone who might oppose Kim Jong-un. Jang's execution sent a clear message. Kim Jong-un would tolerate no opposition, not even from family members who had helped him take power. Other purges followed. Dozens of high-ranking officials were executed or imprisoned. The military was brought to heel. The party apparatus was intimidated into submission. Kim Jong-un consolidated power faster and more brutally than anyone expected. In February 2017, Kim Jong-un's estranged half-brother Kim Jong-nam was assassinated in Kuala Lumpur International Airport in Malaysia. 2 women approached Jong-nam and smeared VX nerve agent, one of the deadliest chemical weapons ever created, on his face. Jong-nam staggered to security, saying he had been attacked. Within minutes he collapsed. He died before reaching the hospital. The women claimed they thought they were participating in a prank show, but investigators determined it was a carefully planned assassination by North Korean agents. Why kill Jong-nam? He had been living in exile and posed no direct threat, but he had occasionally criticized the regime and his younger brother's leadership. More importantly, he was the eldest son, potentially a rival for legitimacy if any faction wanted to challenge Kim Jong-un. By murdering his brother with chemical weapons in a public airport, Kim Jong-un sent another message. He would eliminate any potential rival anywhere in the world using any means necessary. The assassination shocked the international community but demonstrated Kim Jong-un's complete ruthlessness. While purging rivals internally, Kim Jong-un also escalated the nuclear program dramatically. From 2012 to 2017, North Korea conducted 4 more nuclear tests. Each was larger than the last. The final test in September 2017 appeared to be a hydrogen bomb, far more powerful than the earlier atomic bombs. Kim Jong-un also accelerated missile development. North Korea tested intercontinental ballistic missiles that could theoretically reach the United States mainland. In 2017, tensions reached crisis levels. Kim Jong-un and US President Donald Trump exchanged threats and insults. Kim called Trump a dotard. Trump threatened fire and fury. The world feared nuclear war. Then in 2018, everything changed. Kim Jong-un announced he wanted to meet Trump. After decades of isolation, the young dictator stepped onto the world stage. In June 2018, Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump met in Singapore, the first meeting between a sitting US president and North Korean leader. The images were surreal, the young dictator and the American president shaking hands, smiling for cameras, signing vague agreements about denuclearization. They met again in Vietnam in February 2019. That summit ended without agreement when Trump walked out saying Kim's demands were unacceptable. Despite the diplomatic pageantry, nothing fundamentally changed. North Korea didn't give up its nuclear weapons. Sanctions remained. The regime continued as before. But Kim Jong-un had achieved something important: international recognition and legitimacy. He had met with the President of the United States as an equal. He had been on the world stage as a serious leader, not just a young dictator or cartoon villain. For a hereditary dictator who needed to prove himself, this was a significant achievement. Today, in 2024, Kim Jong-un has ruled North Korea for 13 years. He has solidified his power completely. He has built more nuclear weapons. He has continued his grandfather's and father's policies of repression, information control, and personality cult. North Korea remains one of the poorest countries on earth, while the Kim family lives in luxury. The prison camps continue operating. The Songbun caste system remains in place. Information control is absolute, but the dynasty has survived 3 generations and shows no signs of weakening. How has the Kim dynasty maintained power for 75 years? Several factors explain their remarkable survival. First, information control. North Korea is the most isolated country on earth. The internet is unavailable to ordinary citizens. Radios are fixed to government stations. Television shows only state programming. Foreign media is banned. Possession of South Korean media or American films can lead to imprisonment or execution. North Koreans have no access to outside information. They don't know how poor they are compared to South Korea or the rest of the world. The regime controls what people know, what they think, what they believe about their leaders and their country. This information monopoly is crucial to maintaining the personality cult and preventing dissent. Second, the Songbun caste system. By dividing the population into loyal, wavering, and hostile classes based on family history, the regime creates a vested interest in maintaining the system among the privileged classes. Those with good Songbun, whose families supported the regime from the beginning, have better lives. They have incentives to support the Kims and report on anyone who doesn't. Those with bad Songbun have limited opportunities, but they also know that active resistance means not just punishment for themselves, but for their entire families. The system creates both reward and fear, making organized opposition nearly impossible. Third, collective punishment. In North Korea, if someone commits a crime or defects, their entire family is punished. Parents, children, siblings, even cousins. This is based on guilt by association carried to an extreme. It means that anyone considering resistance must think about dooming their entire family. Many people who might otherwise resist don't because they can't bear to destroy their families' lives. This collective punishment system has been used by tyrants throughout history, but North Korea has perfected it. Fourth, the prison camp system. The political prison camps serve multiple purposes. They punish regime opponents. They terrorize the population through fear. They provide slave labor for regime projects. But most importantly, they allow the regime to make people disappear. Entire families vanish into the camps, never to be heard from again. This creates uncertainty and fear. People don't know what happened to disappeared neighbors. The ambiguity is itself terrifying. The camps are North Korea's Gulag archipelago, a vast system of repression that would make Stalin envious. Fifth, the personality cult. From childhood, North Koreans are indoctrinated to worship the Kim family as living gods. Kim Il-sung is the eternal president, still technically the head of state despite being dead for 30 years. His birthday is the most important holiday. Kim Jong-il is the eternal general secretary. His birthday is also a major holiday. Kim Jong-un is the current supreme leader, continuing his grandfather's and father's divine legacy. Children learn to thank the Kims before eating. Adults bow to portraits of the Kims in their homes. The propaganda is relentless, pervasive, and starts from birth. This cult makes opposing the regime feel like blasphemy. It creates psychological barriers to resistance. Sixth, the nuclear weapons. Kim Jong-un's nuclear arsenal serves both external and internal purposes. Externally, it prevents foreign invasion or regime change. No country will attack a nuclear-armed state. But internally, the nuclear weapons also serve the dynasty. They're a source of national pride, proof that tiny North Korea can stand up to superpowers. They legitimize the Kim's rule as strong leaders who protect North Korea from enemies, and they justify the hardships. The regime can say, we must sacrifice to build weapons that keep us safe. The nuclear program is expensive and cruel. Resources go to bombs instead of food, but it serves the dynasty's survival. Seventh, China's support. North Korea has survived partly because China doesn't want it to collapse. China fears Korean reunification would put a US allied unified Korea on its border. China also fears that North Korean collapse would send millions of refugees into China. So China provides enough economic support to keep North Korea functioning. Not thriving, China doesn't want North Korea too strong, but surviving. This external support is crucial. Without Chinese trade and aid, North Korea's economy would likely collapse entirely. The Kim dynasty has cleverly positioned itself as necessary for Chinese interests, ensuring Beijing's continued support. Eighth, military control. The Kim dynasty has always prioritized the military. The military first policy means soldiers are fed before civilians. Military families receive better Songbun ratings. This keeps the military loyal. Officers and their families benefit from the regime. They have no incentive to stage a coup. The military is also structured to prevent coups. Different units watch each other. Commanders are rotated to prevent power bases. Loyalty is constantly tested. No general could organize a coup without being discovered and eliminated. These 8 factors, information control, caste system, collective punishment, prison camps, personality cult, nuclear weapons, Chinese support, and military control, work together to maintain the Kim dynasty. Remove anyone, and the system might still function. But together they create a totalitarian state that has proven remarkably durable. What is life like for ordinary North Koreans? Most live in poverty. Food is rationed. Electricity is unreliable. Housing is basic. Medical care is primitive. In Pyongyang, the showcase capital, life is better. The elite and privileged live there. Buildings are maintained. There's more electricity. better food distribution, but outside Pyongyang, conditions are grim. Many areas lack electricity for most of the day. Farming is done with primitive tools. Malnutrition is common. Travel is restricted. Citizens need permission to move between cities. Internal passports control movement. Weddings and funerals require government permission. Major life decisions must be approved by authorities. Everyone works for the state. There's no private sector legally, though black markets exist in violation of law. Children attend school but spend much time learning propaganda rather than practical skills. They join youth organizations that train loyalty to the regime. Everyone must attend weekly self-criticism sessions where they confess shortcomings and criticize others. Information is controlled. News is propaganda. History is whatever the regime says. Art and music exist to glorify the Kim family. For most North Koreans, life is a daily struggle for survival under total state control. Despite the repression, some resistance exists. Black markets have emerged where people trade goods illegally. This small-scale capitalism helps people survive but violates regime ideology. Some people secretly listen to foreign radio broadcasts. Chinese cell phones have been smuggled in near the border, allowing brief calls to the outside world. Information is slowly seeping in. USB drives with foreign films and TV shows are traded secretly. More North Koreans know about the outside world than ever before. Defection continues. Thousands have escaped, usually through China, risking execution if caught. Their stories reveal conditions inside North Korea and undermine regime propaganda. But organized resistance is impossible. The surveillance and punishment system prevents it. Will the Kim dynasty fall? Some analysts predict collapse is inevitable. The economy is unsustainable. Information is leaking in. Generational change might weaken the cult. But others note the regime has survived predictions of its imminent collapse for decades. It's proven remarkably resilient. Kim Jong-un appears firmly in control. He has consolidated power, eliminated rivals, and continued his family's policies effectively. He has also modernized the personality cult. He appears publicly more than his father did. He's been photographed with his wife and children, humanizing himself while maintaining godlike status. He has overseen economic changes, allowing limited market activity, while maintaining political control, similar to China's approach. Unless something dramatic happens, Chinese withdrawal of support, successful military coup, popular uprising, or Kim Jong-un's death without clear succession, the dynasty will likely continue. The Kim dynasty represents a unique phenomenon in modern history. Communist states were supposed to be based on ideology and collective leadership, yet the Kim family created a hereditary monarchy more absolute than many historical kingdoms. They combined Soviet-style totalitarianism with Korean, Confucian traditions of ancestor worship and filial piety, creating a system that's communist in name but monarchical in practice. They built personality cults that rival ancient god kings. Kim Il-sung is worshipped more devoutly than many religious figures. They created a closed society more isolated than any since perhaps medieval Japan. North Korea is a hermit kingdom with nuclear weapons. They proved that totalitarian control, ruthlessly applied and maintained across generations, can create extraordinary stability, even if the cost is crushing poverty and human rights violations. The Kim dynasty is a testament to both human cruelty and the durability of well-designed oppression. Looking at 75 years of Kim family rule, what lessons emerge? First, information control is central to maintaining tyranny. Once people know the truth about their conditions and alternatives, regimes become vulnerable. Second, cults of personality, when combined with state power and information control, can be remarkably effective even across generations. Third, nuclear weapons provide small, weak states with security guarantees that make regime change nearly impossible. Fourth, systems of mutual surveillance and collective punishment can suppress dissent even in conditions of extreme poverty and oppression. Fifth, external support, in North Korea's case from China, is crucial for isolated regimes' survival. Sixth, ruthlessness works. Kim Jong-un's willingness to execute his uncle and assassinate his brother with chemical weapons consolidated his power effectively. Seventh, Generational succession in dictatorships is possible if carefully managed and backed by sufficient repression. And eighth, the international community has limited ability to change such regimes. Sanctions, isolation and condemnation have failed to dislodge the Kims. These are uncomfortable lessons. They suggest that well-organized tyrannies can endure longer than we'd like to believe. If we could somehow show Kim Il-sung what his dynasty has become, what would he think? He would probably be pleased that his family still rules North Korea 75 years after he took power. He would be proud that North Korea has nuclear weapons, fulfilling his dream of making North Korea a significant military power. He would approve of the continued personality cult, the information control, the totalitarian system. But he might be dismayed by the economy's condition. While he presided over poverty, he did build some industrial capacity. Under his son and grandson, much of that has crumbled. He might be concerned that North Korea depends on China so heavily. His Juche ideology claimed self-reliance, but his descendants have made North Korea economically dependent. He might worry that the nuclear program's costs, international isolation and economic sanctions harm North Korea's long-term prospects. But mostly, he would probably be satisfied. He built a dynasty. His family still rules. His face is still worshipped. His ideology is still taught. From that perspective, his life's work succeeded. The human cost of the Kim dynasty is almost impossible to calculate. The Korean War killed millions. The famines of the 1990s killed hundreds of thousands to millions more. The prison camps have consumed hundreds of thousands of lives over 75 years. Executions, torture, starvation, and slave labor have killed countless political prisoners. Poverty and malnutrition have stunted the growth of generations. North Korean children are significantly shorter than South Korean children due to malnutrition. The opportunity cost is staggering. South Korea, starting from the same poverty in 1950, is now one of the world's wealthiest, most advanced nations. North Korea could have had similar development. Instead, the Kim dynasty chose isolation, militarization, and totalitarian control. 75 years of dictatorship, 3 generations of one family ruling 25 million people with absolute power, nuclear weapons ensuring the regime's survival while the people starve. A personality cult that makes medieval divine right monarchies seem modest by comparison. That is the legacy of the Kim dynasty. Today, Kim Jong-un is in his late 30s. If he lives as long as his grandfather, he could rule for another 40 years. His daughter has appeared in public with him, a possible indication he's preparing the 4th generation. The dynasty could continue into the 22nd century if current trends hold. 3 generations have already ruled. A 4th generation seems likely. The world's longest-lasting communist dynasty shows no signs of ending. This is nuclear bloodline. Inside North Korea's Kim dynasty, from guerrilla fighter to nuclear-armed god king, from divided peninsula to hermit kingdom, from Kim Il-sung to Kim Jong-un, with Kim Jong-il in between. 75 years, 3 generations, 1 family, 25 million subjects, the most isolated dictatorship on earth, the longest ruling communist family in history, the only nation with hereditary communist monarchy. And it continues. This has been Bloodline Chronicles.